Good afternoon, YouTube, and welcome back to Phatkat Collections. Today I want to share with you guys another great product from Lumary, and they basically make kind of smart home lighting solutions. This is the third product, maybe fourth, that I've reviewed by them, and this is a set of their recessed pro lights. Now, in my office here, if you haven't checked out my other videos I have one set of similar lights in my bedroom in the 6-inch versions, and in my office I have what they call their gimbal lights. And they reached out again, and I opted to change out the gimbal lights. Now, the gimbal lights are fantastic. They are directional, but I wanted something that has a little bit more of kind of a light diffuser in it. And so the gimbal lights are kind of more directional. They do have sort of a projector lens, but they tend to be more spotlight-like. So they reached out again, and I requested these. These are the 4-inch versions, 9 watts per light, and you get a 4-pack. In my office, my home does not have recessed lighting, or what I would normally call ceiling cans, and I want to always add these. So it's great that Lumary reached out, and I've been able to put 4 of the 6-inch versions in my bedroom and 4 of the gimbals in my office for extra lighting. But again, I wanted to change these out mainly because this particular model has more of like a diffused light pattern. I kind of wanted to fill this room with a little bit less directional light because I shoot YouTube videos in here. And what I find when I'm using the ceiling cans that are currently in there, the gimbal lights, you get more of a kind of a directional kind of beam, like a biblical glow, right? And I don't want that. So I'm going to swap these out today. I wanted to just kind of do the video before I unbox these and throw them in the ceiling. Then I'm trying to, like, you know, hold the camera around and show you guys what they look like. I will throw some pictures up here when I'm done. You will see the completed project. But another thing that really made me want these, and you guys know I love the LEDs and the different colors and the mood lighting, right? These actually have a built-in sort of ring, which is a secondary light around the light itself, right? So these are super flat. Generally, when you look at like a standard ceiling can, they're more recessed. They call these recessed, but they are going to stick out about 1/8 of an inch. So just kind of keep that in mind, especially with these, because these you want to be able to see that glow. And what's really cool, you can kind of decide whether you want both of these lights on at the same time, or if you want to just have the outer ring. Really cool for like kind of a night lighting effect. In all honesty, if I have the opportunity to change out the bedroom ones with the 6-inch versions, I will add those because I think it's a really kind of cool mood lighting, right? But again, they all work fantastic. I've been a huge fan of Lumary. Excellent company. When you have a problem, you can reach out. They get back to you. There's no like waiting weeks. They're really instant. And that's not just with my contact, but I've actually contacted them before through their Amazon app or Amazon listing, which I'll put the link to this in the description where you can pick these up. Price point on this is, if you get the 4-inch 4-pack, you'll get at $134. If you ever need to buy one replacement, you can buy them singly for $40. And right now they have a $10 off coupon. And at the time of this video, we'll see if I get any kind of extra coupons. We'll see. Sometimes companies do that. They also make the 6-inch version, which is $161. So my recommendation, if you are going to put these in, go with the larger one. I opted to go with the 4-inch version in my office only because I already have the 4-inch hole, and I really didn't want to enlarge it. That can be kind of tricky after the fact. Again, totally doable, but the 4-inch is going to be totally fine in here. But moving forward, I really would prefer going with the 6-inch. Remember, when you're adding this stuff to your home, whether you're doing this during construction or you're doing this after the fact like me and crawling through the attic and running Romex, kind of a factor on more is better, right? I mean, you know, I can't tell you, like, even my parents, like, they self-contracted their home when they built it, and we were able to, I was a young teen, running 20-year-old, you know, they were able to decide where they want stuff, and years later, after the fact, they're always like, why didn't we put an outlet in here? Why didn't we do this? Why didn't we do that? And it's really hard to think of everything, but if you are adding lights to a room, you know, this room here is fine for 4. I'd honestly add 6, you know. I really think more is merrier. These things are so inexpensive, and one thing about light, sometimes you just want a lot of really bright light. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Let's check out what you get. So I'm going to do a little unboxing here. Let me crack this open and show you guys what you get. It's going to be rather short. You get the instruction manual. You get the We Can Help. There is support there with an email address, which is great. You know, service after the sale is something I think pretty awesome nowadays in today's world, right? A lot of times you buy stuff on Amazon and there is no support. Box, right? Open this sucker on up. And I did actually open one of these up already, but this is what the light looks like. Super thin. There's these tabs on it right here, right? And so what you do is you cut your hole in your sheetrock. Use a stud finder. Mr. Impatient here, you know, I was like, oh, I can just kind of tap on it, which I've done many, many times with many things. And unfortunately, with that area up there, they went ahead and put in double studs. I figured they were going to be, yeah, I forget what it is, like 11 inch, 12 inches apart. I forget exactly what it is, but or maybe it's 8-inch center, 8-inch centers or 12-inch centers. Anyway, I tapped. I figured, okay, well, we're good on each side, and there was another one there. So I actually have to do a little sheetrock patch. It's patched, but I got to kind of sand it. And if you've ever worked with sheetrock, once you start sanding, like, it makes a mess. So I got to be in the mood to do that. But anyway, you basically cut your hole, and then you fold these tabs in, and these are going to hold the light in. You pop them in the hole, and these, you know, basically you retract them and they extend, and it just holds the light in there. There is kind of a rubberized gasket that's going to help with vibration. One thing I like about these as opposed to the other ones I reviewed, they've actually, it looks like they've attached this gasket. So this gasket is actually stuck on, whereas these up here, the gasket comes separate, and you're kind of like trying to position it while getting it in here. It's nice to just put them on there. No reason why that needs to be separate at all. You have your screw-on connection, and then that's going to connect you to our other box. You have one of the controllers. And this is what this looks like. Right there, basically a box, tack it down with some screws. You know, they do come with some wire nuts, and you get your 3 different wires here. You get your ground, you get your hot, and you get your neutral. And basically, you know, if you're not handy with doing electrical work, I feel pretty comfortable with stuff like this. So, you know, I've done this already. I'll continue on doing this. But call an electrician. I don't know what that costs, but it is pretty easy. In a couple cases here, just so you guys are aware, again, I'm not an electrician. Don't take my advice. But basically, you will mount this inside your ceiling and then run your Molex, find a circuit, and tie all that in, right? So, but one thing that I did in my bedroom, because I didn't want to, I was going to put in an electrical box, and I actually did put one, and I have to fix it. I made a mistake. For a switch, which is what I did in this room. I actually have these on a switch. I tapped into an existing outlet and ran the wire up the wall. With these, what's kind of cool is because there are smart lights, you know, they just need to be like connected to power. And so just a couple things to think about when you're installing this stuff is if you install this kind of like my bedroom where there is an existing outlet up there, I actually just used a rated extension cord, and I tied all the Romex, I linked in kind of a daisy chain all these lights together, 4 of them. Then I ran that Romex over to an extension cord and just plugged it in, which you could totally do because these are, you don't necessarily need a switch for these, right? A lot of smart lights you don't. You use your voice or you use the app. Now, downside to doing that, if you don't do what I'm telling you, is make sure you plug these into a rated smart switch as well, because all smart devices need to be power cycled from time to time. And so it's kind of nice to have a backup. If you have the main circuit plugged into a smart switch, you can hit a different smart app, kill power to it, have them boot back up. I find that sometimes, like when you're using, the ones I have now, I'll put it on music mode, which is to flash the music using your phone speaker. That's another feature. I find that sometimes when they need a power cycle, they won't flash. They're not synchronized, right? So sometimes that just needs a good power cycle. Sometimes your router that needs to be power cycled. That does happen too. But just kind of think about that. I always, anytime there's somewhere it's a little more difficult to access, for instance, if I have to power cycle the ones in this room, I can just flip the switch, count to 5, flip it back on. In my bedroom, I use a smart switch to kill the power. Now, if that smart switch loses connection, I gotta pull out the ladder and climb up in the attic and unplug them. So just kind of think about that. Good news is I haven't had to do that yet. I will do that today, actually, because I'm going up there. But what else to think about? So the control on this is all through the app for the most part, smart devices, but kudos to Lumary. They actually include a remote control. And so this, I haven't tested this yet, but this I think operates via Bluetooth, maybe, I'm not 100% sure. Some kind of radio frequency that'll allow you to control these lights with a remote control, which is super handy because sometimes you don't always want to pull out your phone or use your voice. So it's nice to still have that old school kind of remote control. I think companies would benefit by making a product like this and making something like this that you stick on the wall that looks like a wall switch, because we're kind of used to using, when you walk into a room, there are areas in my house where I don't want to have to use my voice. I don't want to have to pull up my phone every time I turn on a light. I just want it to be simple. Run in, flip on a switch like in the closet, and it works. So something like this is great because you can use the remote, but it'd be great to have something mounted to the wall that allows you to just walk up and press the button and turn it on, right? So these are just kind of things I think about. But overall, I love the Lumary products. You can see it has, let me just pop this off here, and I'll read you a little bit more about the specifications. We have sort of a frosted, you can see this is going to be more of a floodlight pattern, a frosted kind of plastic lens, and then of course on the sides here you can see this frosted plastic around the edge, and this is basically going to glow and allow you to have these kind of do dance to music, and I like stuff like that, so it's pretty cool. Check out the pictures. There is a link in the description, and you can kind of see what I'm talking about while you're watching this video. Very cool. So again, here's more of the specifications. Let me just show you guys. There's not really much to see in this, this video, because we're not really, it's just a round disc, right? It looks like a coaster, honestly. Let me put that away for a second. All right, so you have the Light Pro features 3 lighting effects to meet different life needs. Down lighting, it says, can be used for daily lighting. Night light mode, that provides the right amount of light with a soft light for nighttime sleep. And then the RGB mode, which creates thousands of different colors to make a space colorful, make a little bit of language barrier. But I think what they're saying there is you have the primary light, the secondary light, and then I don't really understand what they mean by a night light versus RGB. I think they mean that you can use this light in the standard white Kelvin temperatures, right? You cool white to warm white, the RGB mode, and then of course the night light ring around the corner, which again can also act as like kind of a cool kind of party mode, right? Then of course, it says here, it has a recessed lighting with RGB backlight, which allows you to adjust the color. 16 million colors. We all know that. 14 scenes. A lot of times the scenes are too. I don't really get involved in the scenes too much, but you have the ability, and again, to do that. And then, of course, the Kelvin temperatures are 2700 to 6500 K. That's going to be on your white colors, so super cool to nice and warm. And I'm not going to read this word for word. However, then it says here, voice and Bluetooth remote control. It says there are Wi-Fi recessed lights that work with both smart home assistants by Google and Amazon, or the Bluetooth remote. So that's great if you don't, if you don't have, that kind of, if somebody's going to buy these there are people out there who don't want to be bothered with the Wi-Fi capabilities. It's really great that you can still buy these if you don't have a Wi-Fi router, if you don't have Wi-Fi in your house. Believe it or not, there are people out there who don't. You can still use these with the Bluetooth remote. And of course, if you want to use them both, you can with the 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi only. That's pretty standard in this Wi-Fi smart home industry. A lot of devices are only 2.4. And then of course, this part says you can kind of control different rooms. So what I do is like, I can say upstairs ceiling lights, and I turn on all 8 lights at the same time. That's kind of cool for me when I'm listening to music. I crank on the systems, and then I turn on all 8 lights, put them in music mode, and it looks like a dance club in here, right? So, okay, welcome back. So, just got done installing these. Actually, by the time you watch this video, I did it yesterday. Spent 3 hours crawling through the attic, removing the old Lumary lights to install the new controller boxes. Super annoying. This is kind of my first complaint. Now, maybe they can't do this, but I find it annoying that you have to change out the entire controller box. And I know they show you that generally if you were installing these in a home with an existing location, that you would basically just do this from below. I don't see how anybody would be able to do this from below unless, of course, they left a bunch of Romex hardline electrical wire with enough slack to pull it down through the ceiling. Now, that might be a blunder on my part. Maybe I should have left more slack where you could do this from down below. Hindsight, I probably should have. I don't know. I'm not an electrician, so I don't know. Normally when they install hard devices like this, they generally don't leave a bunch of slack. Normally the Romex is tacked to the top of the floor joist, right? Or the ceiling joist in this case. So not really sure on that, but just kind of things to think about if you are installing these. I would recommend leaving some slack. The thing is that the controller box is meant to be screwed down, so it's not kind of flopping around up there. Again, the only way this would move around, if you're installing the scenario where there's no traffic, I don't think it's really too important, but probably to National Electrical Code, it probably does need to be screwed down. I did screw them down, so for me, I had to crawl up in the attic. Again, I can't really stand in my attic, so I'm kind of stooping down, curling around, really annoying, right? So, yeah, it's a new day. After having to do that and installing the boxes, it would be really nice if Lumary had a box that they could feature with all of their lights like this, that basically if you want to make a change and upgrade to a different model light, you could just basically upgrade the light itself and not the controller box. It would be really nice to be able to have that automatically through their app flash maybe new firmware or update the firmware on the device in order for you to use it with any light rather than having to take out the controller. Another complaint I had was the boxes are really small, and depending on how you wireless, what I did when I wired mine, I wired these in a loop. And so the first box is going to have power coming in, and you're going to use wire nuts to tie all this together. I tied one box to a second box to a third box. Is that right? So you have you have the actual box wiring, and then the loop, right, which goes around to each box. So you're trying to squeeze all this into a relatively small box. I guess you could have the wires hanging out, right? If they're not in a high traffic area, like they're not, obviously, it's not that big a deal. But generally, I'm sure that's not national electrical code. You do want all that kind of tucked away and screwed down and tacked down. However, if you did leave enough slack in your Romex wire to actually reach up to the ceiling, pull down the box to the ceiling, and then make those changes and tuck it back up, you could do that, but you wouldn't be able to screw the box to the floor joist. You have to be in the attic to do that, right? And that's something I brought up to them. Why not make the box a little bigger? And their whole concern was being able to get it through the hole that you cut in the ceiling. However, this box is way smaller than a 4-inch hole. You can make the box bigger in order to accommodate that, or make the box longer. That argument doesn't really hold water. You can make a longer box with plenty of room to squeeze all it in. The other thing is that the punch outs on the box are actually really sharp, so you have to be careful not to damage the cable. You're trying to squeeze and twist all this wire together. You got to be a little bit careful with that, right? Plus, the connectors they give you, the wire nuts, are small, kind of on the small side. Generally, house Romex wiring, at least in the United States, is a lot larger. So I had to go buy a box of, larger wire nuts that allow you to twist all those wires together. Again, very small gripe. So anyway, once they're installed, my biggest complaint with these, well, let me start with how cool they are, right? So I'm going to pop the camera up a little bit so you folks can see what I'm talking about. So here's the finished product on 2 of them. I have 4 in the room. You have the outer ring, which is RGB. That'll glow to 16 million different colors. I am a little disappointed with these lights because, and I'm not the only one, the Amazon listing is a little bit misleading, and they need to, and I hope that they listen to this video and take this into consideration, because once you get a customer, you want to hold on to that customer, right? You want somebody who buys Lumary to say, Lumary is my lighting company, my go-to. And I think this is a fantastic company. However, these lights, when you look at the Amazon listing and description, make it sound like these are RGB LED lights, and they are not. The RGB section is only the ring. So my disappointment, and I was pretty pissed when I installed these, spent all that time, because I swapped out some of their gimbal lights, which are RGB, and you can pick 16 million different colors, warm white, cool whites, that whole range of Kelvin temperature, up to those 16 million different colors, have them flash to music. My office would become this glowing blue, dance club. Now, these do provide some light, some ambient light. They illuminate the ceiling pretty well, but not to the extent that the other ones did. So at some point, I may switch these out to a different model, the ones that I have in my bedroom. We'll just have to see what Lumary comes out with. We are hopefully going to collaborate again. I think we will. So I will just have to kind of be in the mood to go through the hassle of reinstalling another set. It is annoying. I have to crack out the ladder, get my tools, crawl through the attic, and I'm no spring chicken, so it is kind of a pain in the ass to do that, right? So, but all that being said, they are really cool lights. It's just if you want the RGB function, it only does it on the ring and not the actual light, which I found quite foolish that they would produce a light that only did the whites and not the RGB in the actual light. And there's a little bit of a language barrier there. They had said that they did that for a reason, because I don't really know what the reason was. I didn't understand it, but you could very easily give people the option to turn these on with the RGB ring, to have the ring match a different color, light coming out of it. But it was very disappointing. I'm still disappointed, because I really like to crank up the music and have the room really glow, where these don't really do that. They do give you some color. It is kind of a it is kind of a dim night light color. Like you do get some color in the room, but not like you did before, right? So just these are things to think about. This may not bother many people at all, but if you are expecting these to produce RGB light out of the main light, you need to choose a different model, right? Like the ones I put in my bedroom, those are perfect. So with that being said, I can understand if I like misread something, but their Amazon listing, I am going to read it to you. And I'm doing this not to insult this company in any way, because I love Lumary products, but it's important that companies like this are a little bit more careful with how they present the product. And I know this was not intentional. This is just something that sometimes, you know, there is a little bit of a language barrier when companies list this stuff. And for instance, when I click on their Amazon listing, they show their very first picture shows the light just in a white mode on. Then it shows the light just with the ring on. Then it shows a third picture showing the ring and the light. And based on this picture, one could argue that that looks like blue light coming out of it. And so that's probably just getting a little bit of reflection from the actual blue ring. But it looks like these lights are capable of producing RGB out of the main downlight, and they don't. And so that's why when I looked at this and I looked at the other colors, when you briefly look through this, common sense would just tell you, like every one of their other lights that are RGB had the ability to change color. And this is the only one they make that they've removed the RGB function out of the light and put it in the ring. They should have put it in both, right? I mean, they can do this. This is not something that's like difficult for them to do. Then when you go down to the description, it says here 3 lighting modes. It says here down light, used for daily lighting. Night light, provide the right amount of soft light for nighttime sleep. And then it says 3, RGB light creates thousands of different colors to make your space colorful. That's incorrect. They should specifically state RGB light is only out of the ring. They make it sound like the whole light does RGB, and it does not. So, disappointing, but still very cool. So let me just kind of demonstrate. I love the, I'm using the Smart Life app. I think Lumary has their own app, but you can turn on or off the color ring by itself. You can see I turn it on. They have some pre-selected colors here. Red, pink, teal, we got green, right? So pretty cool, very responsive. I always like the blue. You can change the brightness. That's 100%. I'm gonna dim it down to like 10. You can see really dim. I mean, you're just gonna see a little ring on the ceiling, which, you know, I think most people are gonna leave this at 100%. Then you can turn on the white function, which is the actual main light. And you can go from, I'm gonna turn it up all the way. They're nice and bright for sure. You can go from warm all the way up to that real cool light. You know, I generally kind of keep it on sort of like an in-between, about like that for like recording. And then you can dim it all the way down, of course, and turn that off. You do have the color palette, and these are actually scenes. So they will actually, for instance, when I turn on one of these scenes, this one just shows red, and it's actually going to jump colors. So red to green, dazzle. This is going from what is going to go to red, green, blue. So these are kind of, I think, kind of useless. This one's called Streamer. These are just random kind of names. Streamer doesn't make any sense. So is it going from green to... So you can kind of choose your own color rotation. For me, I'm just going to keep it right in the blue, which is mainly what I'm going to be using this as, right? And then, of course... you can set initial mode, the restore mode, and how you want this to turn on if you turn off the switch or kill power to it altogether. I just have it set to default where I left it before it lost power. So what else? And then, of course, you have music mode. You can have turn on the gradient of lights is turn on gradually or turn off and then dim. So these can actually dim down and come on smoothly. I don't use a lot of stuff, but it is an option on there. I have a group set so I can control all 4 at the same time. That's usually how most people are going to control lights like this. And, you know, overall, though, I mean, they're very cool lights, but I just wish they would have had the function of the RGB out of the main light. So another thing that disappoints me about these is that you can't actually set up, let me just kind of bring this back down here. You can't set up groups with existing Lumary ceiling lights. So I have their standard 6-inch RGB lights in my bedroom, and the other lights I had, the gimbal lights, I could set one group for both sets of lights. So I could turn on music mode and have the entire upstairs going to music, or I could change the entire upstairs lighting. In order for me to interact with both sets of lights, I have to create a scene. You can't create a group. They are not compatible. And so that's really disappointing. Why they would make this light not compatible with the other lights is beyond me, at least for the turn on function, right? Or at least for the RGB function. So that's a real blunder for me on why I personally probably wouldn't choose these lights again. Now, they do make another set of lights, and what I propose, if I don't want to actually remove these, because it is a pain in the ass, I have to think about what I want to do. They make some huge 8-inch versions. Now, they are the same version, so I have to kind of commit myself if I'm going to separate bedroom from upstairs office and have to being able to control those separately. The reason for this may not seem like a big deal to most, but when I turn on my music, I want the whole upstairs. I'm rocking out upstairs. I want the whole upstairs to kind of pulse with the music. And with these, I can only choose bedroom or office. They can't do it together. Whereas the other lights, the gimbal lights and the other flat RGB cans, they interacted together, and I could turn them on or off together. So again, kind of think about that before you purchase these, because they look super cool, but unless you really, the nightlight feature is kind of cool, but you can just dim down the standard blue light and get sort of something similar. I think this is kind of gimmicky, and I think I would overall recommend their standard lights over these, and I'm hoping that I could do another review on those for the 4-inch versions and get the similar ones that are in my bedroom. Or I might just put the gimbal ones back. I don't know if I'm going to necessarily leave these in, but they're in for now. I'm in no rush to take them out. The other option I might do is to get a couple 6-inch versions and add 2 more, maybe here between the 2, and have those be the standard light. So then I could still have the music flashing from my bedroom to the music and in my office on 2 lights, and have basically a group that will control bedroom lights and 2 6-inch ceiling cans, and these would be kind of separate. I don't know. I got to kind of think about what I want to do there. But just, again, those are just a couple things to consider. The other cool features is one thing I really like about them, these are super bright. So compared to the gimbal lights, I really like the way these glow. The gimbal lights are more of like a projector style, which is why you can kind of like twist them around and adjust them. So if you're trying to illuminate maybe like an art wall, those are great, right? That would be awesome downstairs where I have some art down there. I can kind of illuminate that. I did sort of use those on this wall where I had those lights pointed at a couple of my pictures. They were really great as well, but for YouTube videos and filming, the light was 2-directional. So these are fantastic. When I turn these on, and I filmed earlier with all that light on, like the whole room is illuminated. So that's a real plus for a room that I mainly use to film YouTube videos in. So I think the other lights will be just a much better addition than these because they have the ability to not only provide that great, super bright, cool white for recording, but also the really kind of fun, interactive RGB lighting modes, or moving, making it move to music. Now, the other cool thing these do have is they have a remote control, and this is really awesome. So these are not only Wi-Fi lights operated by your smart home assistants, but also by the remote, and this is really handy. This is a great feature on this because a lot of times when people get smart devices like this, it can become kind of annoying. We're used to walking into a room and turning things on without our voice or having to pull out the phone, right? So this is pretty cool. I can just hit the button and turn these off or turn these on, and then I could hit. I'm still kind of figuring this out, but you could change the Kelvin temperature. You could change, there's different scenes. I'm not going to get too involved in this right now, but you can manipulate these lights with the remote. So I'm just going to kind of mess around here and just kind of press. I think the batteries are kind of dead, and I use old batteries, but when I press A, it's going to turn them on, and if I hit Kelvin 1, this will change the temperature of the white portion, and you can dim them up or down. And then, but to turn that off again, that's kind of where I'm a little confused at how you operate this. Let me see if I hit one of these other ones here. Yeah, so still a little bit confused on how you turn that function off again. Kelvin, that's just changing Kelvin. You would think dimming it all the way down would do it. Scene. Nope, that turns into, Okay, now you're cycling through scenes. So you have some control, but I'm just not really sure how you... Like, maybe this will cycle through all the scenes, red. But see, like, I didn't program these scenes, so I'm a little confused on how you... Yeah, so now we got green, but green is never one I chose, so I would go back, and now it dimmed down. So that's not, like, anything against their product. This is probably something that just needs to be sort of ironed out. I'm not really sure how to set these, but it is pretty cool that the most important function is on or off, and you can just turn these on or off with the press of the buttons. For that time, they went to dim, but now they're off. Now they're on, off, bright on, off. Now they're sort of half on, off. So very, very confusing as far as how the remote works, but I'm sure just with time I'll figure that out. I'm sure I'm just doing something wrong. But overall, like all the Lumary products, these are awesome, awesome lights. It's just so the buyer knows what you're getting. Lumary should update their listing to specifically state that RGB, that's the biggest complaint, RGB is not the light itself, it's only the nightlight ring. So let me know what you guys think about this. Go ahead and give the video a like and a thumbs up. We know all that YouTube stuff we always tell you guys to do. Subscribe to the channel, and if I can answer any questions whatsoever, let me know. I'll do my best to get you an answer. Link is in the description to check these out, and if you have any other questions about any of the other Lumary products, by all means, hit me up. Thanks for watching, folks. Have a great day, and take care.